Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to House of Footy. It's your boy Ray, and alongside me is Gio
Yo, yo, yo.
and Mac.
Good evening.
And on today's podcast, we will be reviewing the action from match week 18 of the Premier League, as well as we'll be previewing the upcoming match week 19 games. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow us on our social media, both on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle is at @houseof_footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to us. We are on both Spotify and YouTube. Lastly, feel free to get in touch with us via email. We love hearing from you guys, and we want you guys getting involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. But yeah, let's get straight into the action. Firstly, we're going to go to Arsenal 4, Brighton 2. Mac, Arsenal, again, getting off to a strong start and really taking control of this game away from home, actually, in a game we thought would be a little more tricky, but kudos to Arsenal. Really were able to dominate that first half, and even though things got a little bit, I guess, chaotic in the second half, still was able to pull through. What were your thoughts, Mac?
Overall, you got to be happy with the performance. I think all of the front four bagged a goal in the game. Each played exceptionally well in individual moments and had quality link-up play, as well as there was a great amount of chances created for all individuals for each individual. I think the key point though is that, and I think this was highlighted actually on Match of the Day, and when I was watching the game, something that really stood out to me was Arsenal's kind of ball retention and winning the ball back high up the pitch. This is kind of a new staple that they're really going for, and is much of the trend in football. I think Odegaard is in the top three in the top five leagues in Europe for winning the ball back in the final third. Number one's actually Kevin De Bruyne. But so Odegaard's just a couple possessions fewer under there, as well as both Xhaka and Partey. And that was kind of emblematic even in the first goal of Partey winning the ball back, quickly be able to get on that counter and going ahead to be able to get Arsenal a good early goal. So overall, really happy with the performance in terms of how it shook out for each for the team. And it was good to see everyone be able to get on the score sheet there. So as an Arsenal fan, really biased. If you really want to be able to take the positives there, unfortunately, as kind of you highlighted, towards the end of the second half, there was a little bit of slippage. But I think that in the same time, if you get these mistakes out of the way, Saliba made another mistake for, I think it was Brighton's first goal. And it was not the greatest in terms of kind of control to be able to bring the ball down, to be able to kind of give it back to Ramsdale, who of course could have hooked it long. But I think that's really, really key, is where they can get their mistakes out of the way. There's still things that they can improve on, because these next couple games, and we'll talk about later, are really tricky.
Yeah, and Gio, Arsenal off to a great start, getting those goals, which, we mentioned it, I think, last time Arsenal were facing West Ham. Their goals could have been avoided, but when you're a team in form like Arsenal, everyone is trying to get first to the ball for everything. Even Odegaard's second goal, which was, I think you noted here, it was a little bit weird because the ball bounces off the ground. Goals like this go in for you because you're in red hot form and you're first to the ball and you're on that front foot. What were your thoughts, Gio?
Honestly, even from the very first goal, lucky bounces go your way when you're playing well and you're applying that pressure onto teams. You're in the right spots. You know where you're supposed to be. You know where you're supposed to go. And things will happen when you're playing well, and the team morale is good when everybody is just on their toes and ready to go. And that's exactly what happened. Saka was ready for the ball when it did bounce to him. Because we kind of mentioned with City, right? They get a lot of bounces that go their way sometimes, and they always score these very simple looking goals, but it's because they're applying the right pressure. All the players are in their right spots, and they're just simply just having fun playing football. And like you can see it every time everybody scores a goal, the whole team kind of gets together. From like Saliba to Gabriel, they're all together, and it's just fun to watch. It's fun to watch a team that's not City be on the top of the table, and and again, we've seen Arsenal kind of slip late in games sometimes, and they kind of have to climb their way back into the game. But But yeah, this game it was a little bit slippage. It's something they can definitely work on, and it's definitely something that they can get out of their system quite quickly. As you are just, they're already up in the game as opposed to, you know, Brighton, tying the game or taking the lead or anything like that. It's a couple of things that need to fix, but nothing to worry about in my opinion.
Of course, like Mac mentioned, conceding those goals later in the game when essentially you pretty much wrapped up the game in the first half. It'll be something that Arteta will be hammering down. I'm sure of it to his Arsenal team. The game is 90 minutes, as we all know. Going back to that, even that World Cup final with Argentina and France, things can happen, but I'm sure that those mistakes happening now, like Matt mentioned, are better to get them out of the way now. And as you continue to go through this long season, obviously you want to get those things fixed up. I guess question for you, Mac, now that obviously you mentioned all front four scored in this game, is there even a need for another striker if everyone's performing this way? What are your thoughts?
So it's very interesting. I was listening to a podcast where Fabrizio Romano, kind of someone that we all follow on Twitter, who gives all the kind of the here we go updates of transfers. The talk is where there in all likelihood will be at least one signing brought into the front four position, not necessarily a striker, not necessarily a winger. It seems like Mudryk is the first domino to fall. If so, then from what he was talking about, then they'll revisit the Joao Felix situation to see if that's necessary. So it seems like there will be a need for at least one, just in case if there's an injury to Gabriel Jesus, unless there's an injury next week to Martinelli, who do you put in? Because if Emil Smith-Rowe is not fully ready yet, right? So having a little bit of extra depth going into the back half of the season where the fixture lists are still very packed and condensed, and Arsenal thus far have been fortunate with the injury bug. Having kind of another another kind of weapon off the bench, I think could be very beneficial. So I think that there is a need because just as things are going great now, that could easily change, as I said, if an injury does hit.
Right. Okay, so let's move on to another game taking place. Newcastle 0, Leeds 0. Gio, you noted here a very frustrating day for Newcastle as they let points slip. How big of a disappointment was this for them? Really, what are your thoughts?
Look, I think they shouldn't be too disappointed. Obviously, it was an opportunity lost, but given the form that they're in and how well they're playing, not really dropping points really anywhere. You're gonna have you're gonna have days like this as a sports team. But yeah, no, I think they definitely had their fair amount of chances. They dominated the game pretty much. If you look here, 16 shots, 5 on target, as compared to Leeds 8 shots, 1 on target. And again, I mentioned that Rodrigo was their only really that shot from outside on the right side, curling inwards. That was their only attempt, and that was the only one that touched the net. So again, credits to Meslier, who had a great game. He was making fantastic saves, as he does. He's almost known to make those types of saves. He actually should get a lot of credit for keeping Leeds in a lot of these matches that they're in, as he is, probably gets the biggest workload out of all of them. So yeah, tough day. But I think they, as a team that's sort of newer in this scenario where they're in the top four and they're battling for a position like this, they just need to shake this one off and look into the next game. At the end of the day, they got a point out of it. So no harm, no foul. Just shake it off and go to the next one,
Right, and obviously they want the games to come as quickly as possible. As we mentioned last time, they are in great form. They do have players coming back like Callum Wilson, who came on in the second half. Them not scoring in this game will obviously put some questions in that, but obviously with Callum Wilson being injured, you can see, I guess, why that could have happened. He did feature in the second half, so going forward, I would expect him to be starting most games rather than Chris Wood. What do you think about this game, Mac?
I think this does highlight where there is that layer of drop off for certain players in Newcastle when injuries do occur. Because that Chris Wood to Callum Wilson, that's a huge gap. And I know that you guys may not like to hear this, but the gap from Joe Willock to St. Maximan, who did come on and played 27 minutes towards the end of the game, there's a large drop off there, right? Where in terms of that quality up front to be able to create opportunities, it really has been Almiron or nothing, right? Trippier, Almiron, that's all they've really been able to do these last couple of rounds of fixtures. And if that's not working for them, which in this game it doesn't, there isn't much another thing that can lean on. The striker that they brought in, Isak, I know he's been injured for quite a time period, and having Wilson injured as well, leaves no choice to play Chris Wood, which he didn't have a great game. He only touched the ball 14 times, 70% passing completion, which is not horrible, but not great. There was no impact. You cannot kind of feel him whatsoever throughout the entire game. And I think that's unfortunate for Newcastle because this was a good opportunity, as we'll talk about. A lot of other teams dropped points around them, and they could have gained some leverage to further solidify themselves as being in a top 4 position. And just as it's a tricky fixture for Arsenal coming up, it's even more so for Newcastle in a lot of ways. So it'll be very interesting to see how they manage this next round of fixtures, to see how that'll go. But I think they should be disappointed with this performance offensively.
Okay. Mac, you mentioned teams around them dropped points, and obviously Arsenal won, so it wasn't them. It was actually Man City, Gio, who dropped points. They tied Everton 1-1 in a game where we kind of predicted, Haaland is going to get his expected 3 goals. It'll be a easy night for him. It didn't turn out that way, I guess, for Man City. He did get on the score sheet, but I think it was Ben Godfrey who was I'm sure you guys saw the videos of them getting into it over the weekend. Did he have any effect on them, or it was just Man City just not their day that day? What do you think, Joe?
It just wasn't their day. There's no way a guy like Godfrey is really bothering a guy like Haaland. There's 2 different levels. There's many different levels in between them. So look, it took for a, we've seen Man City sort of win 1-0 and be quite comfortable, sort of playing the ball around. If they don't get their chance, they don't get their chance. But it was poor defending that really led to the Damari Gray chance. It was poor defending on top of a worldie of a goal. You give him 50 balls there. I don't know how many times he's scoring a goal like that. I don't care if he's a professional. I don't care what the situation is. He's not scoring that goal many times. But yeah, it took a worldie for them to even get on the score sheet. So I think, yes, they're disappointed that they dropped points, but they should be more disappointed in how almost sloppy the defending was in order for him to be that free in the box or just outside the box to even get an opportunity off, even slipping and then still having all that space. Somebody should be there, somebody should step up and should be on that immediately. So I think they'd be more disappointed in that sense as opposed to not being able to score a second goal or anything like that. That shouldn't happen for a team of Man City's caliber.
Yeah, definitely not. And you see it with a lot of, what we've been seeing obviously a lot on social media is Jack Grealish, Riyad Mahrez, and obviously they're playing the likes of, I think it was Rico Lewis, Nathan Ake as quote-unquote wide backs next to Akanji and Stones. There are players to come back for Man City, and you expect them to pick up their performances as they go on, Mac. But is there anything there to worry about in terms of their attacking potency, or do you think it's just a matter of time before they get their guys back and function as they normally do?
I think it's been a common complaint, I guess in Pep Guardiola's kind of Achilles heel in a lot of ways, where he tends to overthink it and play his hand a little bit too much sometimes. And if you saw the performance with against Man City against Leeds, Man City were not very, very convincing. It was down to a Leeds error that got their breakthrough of them to be able to get on the score sheet to be up 2-1, right? So it's it's not just this game. It's also been the previous game where there hasn't been as much of a creative sense, in my opinion, from out wide, from their fullback positions that they've generally had. Because Morris he's not looked great. He's had a couple of decent moments, but it hasn't been as his consistent high level of standards. Jack Grealish hasn't looked the best, and you named Ake and Rico Lewis, who they're great kind of role positions, but at this time of the season, you kind of need your big boys to be able to come in and kind of give you results, as well as be able to make sure that those opportunities that are created are presented to the right people. They only attempted 16 shots and only 3 on target. For
Only.
this game. No, but it's for City. For City,
Yeah,
that is
no,
very,
I get
very low.
it.
They average over 20 shots a game, and I think it's like 8 or 9 on target, right? You expect them to be able to pummel the goalkeeper, and they never really felt that. So that for me is kind of a key loss, and it's just him overthinking it. Cancelo was on the bench, could have played. Phil Foden's not starting ahead of Jack Grealish. I understand you want to be able to get Grealish going, but you can't just throw Mahrez and Grealish, in my opinion, both players who haven't played a whole lot this season, and expect, hey, we need the goods right now from the both of you, get rolling, and you're only really getting kind of production out of Holland. So I think it's a little disappointing there. So players like that, but I think you do make a fair point. Like Julian Alvarez, who was kind of a surprise for them in a lot of ways in terms of how impactful he has been. He's on his way back. He did come on in this game, only played 4 minutes, but hopefully he and Foden will get more opportunity to kind of show up.
Okay, so now that we wrapped up those 3 games, we're going to talk about the title race. Currently, Arsenal are first with a 7-point gap on Manchester City, who are in second, and then Newcastle are third on 34 points, 2 points behind Man City and 9 points behind Arsenal. So, Gio, obviously, I think it's fair to say Arsenal are looking good because they're tied on. They have played the same games. They have 7 points on Man City. They're most in form at the moment, I would say. It just shows in the Premier League table. They're the most informed team. What do you think? Are they now considered the favorites, Gio? Or what do you see happening?
I think you have to put them as favorites in terms of their form and simply their consistency. I would say you have to pin them as favorites. Whether or not they've played Man City yet, and there could be point swings there. But even if City do win that fixture, they only gain 3 points out of the 7 points they're ahead. I think based off sheer consistency, and if you were to play the season out based on this trajectory and how the season has gone up until then, then they're definitely the favorites now. So it's definitely their title. I would want to say is their title to lose. It's still close. It's still a close race. 7 points is very close in the league. So they shouldn't feel too comfortable. They should take every game very seriously, no matter how light the competition can feel. That 7-point lead is good. It's a good start, but they can definitely add to it.
Okay, Mac. Obviously, there are some upcoming games for Arsenal that might be challenging. I believe they do. So they are facing Newcastle, which we'll touch on a little bit later. But I think they're also facing Tottenham in the month of January.
Is that really a tough game, though?
Yes.
Oh, okay, we can discuss that. But they're also facing Man U in January as well. So this run of games for January, I think, is a make or break for Arsenal. What do you think?
I think that's a very interesting point. I think in some ways, yes, in some ways, no. Because 4 of the next 6 Premier League fixtures are, as you said, Newcastle, Tottenham, Man U, and then City, February 15th. That's the next 4 of the next 6 fixtures for Arsenal. If you compare it contrast it to Man City, 5 of their next 7 are against Man U, Tottenham twice, Arsenal, and Chelsea. So both teams have a really, really tough kind of next round of fixtures. So I think by the end of this time period, I think at that point we can signify, this is the clear gone favorite, right? And I think the only reason why that we haven't named Arsenal as a favorite to the degree as such as they are is what Man City have done historically over the last 5-6 seasons, right? I think if it wasn't around, if they didn't have that type of performance and all things being equal, we would look at this very, very differently. I do agree this is still the correct way to look at it, given Man City can potentially, you look at the players that they have on the team, the quality that they can kind of produce game in, game out, they could flip a switch and go on this next 7 games and win out against all those teams, and it doesn't matter because on their day, they're probably the best team in Europe, right? The difference will be is that consistent performance. If they're able to average it out and kind of close that gap to Arsenal at the end of the next 6-7 games, by the time they end up facing each other for the first time, because they still have to face each other twice as their first game was postponed. I think that's when we'll really know is, okay, here's the clear favorite. We'll know what we're going to have here going forward. So Arsenal really have all first play for it, but they've at least given themselves kind of a good advantage to start off with.
Okay, definitely. So that being said, we're going to take a quick break here, guys, and then we'll be back covering some more games from Match Week 18. So stay with us. Welcome back to House of Footy, guys. We're going to continue our Match Week 18 of the Premier League review. Next game we're going to cover now is Manchester United 1, Wolves 0. Interesting to note, Marcus Rashford does not get the start for this game due to disciplinary issues. Him reported, I believe, late to that team meeting ahead of the game and was dropped for the first half, but did come on and feature and really affect the game in the second half, Gio. What were your thoughts on this game?
Great move by Ten Hag. I think, now that you've kind of ended that Ronaldo saga, you kind of have to run your team, the way you need to. And the way you have to is discipline, rules, there's definitely a hierarchy that, you have to abide by. And it sets an example for the younger guys coming in, definitely. So I think that was the right move. And for example, if the team were to lose, great. You should all look at Marcus Rashford. He's the hottest guy on the pitch, and he wasn't on the pitch. For what? For being late. So honestly, I think it was a great move, win or lose. But yeah, it was a tight game. I think early on, Wolves actually had quite a bit more chances than Man U going forward. They were missing a couple of things, like one great through ball, or like a clinical finisher. You kind of, if Diego Costa was maybe 5 years younger, it could have been a different story. But, that wasn't the case. But yeah, he didn't look bad by any means. So, yeah, and then I thought, everybody, including Luke Shaw, had a great game, playing center back again. Obviously, against a weaker side like Wolves, you're able to do that. But against, a different side, it could be, a completely different story. Tyron Malacia was good. Wasn't great, but he was good. I think the weakest link on the field was actually Anthony, who I thought was just okay, and it was on the brink of mediocre. So he was okay. He put in his minutes, but nothing amazing. Especially for a player of that price tag, you'd expect something more. Blame it on the fatigue from the World Cup, whatever. But we have to see more. Or you might see him get that Sancho treatment soon. So we wouldn't want to see that. So my guy, I need you to step it up. But yeah, back to Rashford. The quality shows when he's on the pitch and he's off the pitch. He's just a guy in form, man on a mission type player right now, and he's not scared to take on players. And I think we talked about that last week about if the possibility of him becoming the striker from Man U, but then takes away his ability or his capability of attacking players on the side and really driving against players, putting defenders on their back feet, and sort of attacking in that sense. So it's a good dilemma to have, but you see what he can do, so it's kind of tough for you to sort of take him out of his comfort zone even.
Honestly, just hearing you talk about that, Gio, personally I didn't watch the game. I just relied on a lot more highlights, and I did see a lot of slander on Anthony, but Rashford stepping up at this crucial time when obviously it seems like a long time ago now, but that Ronaldo saga, him being the main striker, and him being obviously no longer with the team, you need Rashford to step up or someone to step up, and it's great to see Rashford stepping up now because you give the chance to other players, like hopefully Anthony picks up how he sort of started the season. Maybe Sancho comes back, Martial steps up again. Garnacho, maybe he becomes the new guy coming in, and that's what you need going forward. Because now Man U have won 4 of the last 5 games, leapfrogging Spurs, who we'll cover in a little bit. Gio's pumping his fists, but currently in 4th, and even though there are players to come back and playing makeshift formations, the results are there. And you guys, I think, touched on it last week. It's going to be a tight game for Man U, but they did get the win. And I guess at this point, you really just need the results to get you through this tough period. Mac, what were your thoughts on this Man U performance, and how do you see them going forward with that, with their sort of run of form?
I think it's in terms of, I'll say half the team, in terms of if you give an overall rating of the performance, I think half the team 8 out of 10. Defensively, they did a good job. David De Gea was doing what he does, making crucial saves when Manchester United need him. Defensively, a kind of a player that's really stood out to me, especially coming back from the World Cup after a quick turnaround, was Varane. Probably been his best run of form while wearing a Manchester United jersey. So full credit to them on the defensive aspect. Wan-Bissaka coming in, doing a good shift, making sure that kind of no one can be able to get by him down on that right-hand side. But offensively, it was very, very poor. And it was just kind of through the skin of their teeth that they got through. But they did get through. So you have to give them credit for that. But it does leave it leaves you in a position where you're not 100% sure how you should feel when you're analyzing them. Is that, yes, you've done great defensively. You haven't conceded a whole lot of goals. But that's not really if that's the platform to be able to build off for Ten Hag, great. But you need some production up top. Otherwise, you're going to be in positions where those bounces may not go to your way some weeks, and you're now behind in the game and have to chase it, and you're not really comfortable or ready to do so. So it's a little give and take. I think overall, you got to be very, very happy with the recent run of form, considering where they started off the season to be 4th. And with a game in hand, in on 3rd, actually. So if you win your game in hand,
right,
you're 3rd. That's overall, if you asked me at the beginning of the season, if you're a Manchester United fan, would you take that? 100%. The difference would be is that, for me, the performances haven't matched the results, because they've got the results, but the performances where they're kind of dominating, being in that 3rd place spot, theoretically, are they at that level? I'm not sure. It'll be interesting to see if Ten Hag can build off the foundation, like I said, of the defense to be able to get there. So that's more so interesting for me. On a side note, I know this will make Gio happy. Harry Maguire came on and played a minute, so that was great news for everybody. So you got to love to see that up his transfer value, right?
Wasn't there that crazy stat where it was like the beginning of the season, Maguire was dropped for a while, and then Man U kept winning, and then he came back on and then didn't perform that well. Am I making this up, or was that something real that happened this year?
Yeah. I don't know if it was him, or if you want to blame him or Ronaldo. You could one of the two. Both. I think that's fair.
Hey, but there it is. Man U are picking up points, and I did say it's a great thing that Marcus Rashford is stepping up, but like Mac mentioned, Gio, their performances going forward may suffer a little bit if there's a bad run of form. Is that striker position, I guess, similar to Arsenal? Is that something that they need to address this transfer window to sort of keep trying to push for that top 4, or do you think they'll be okay with the personnel they have?
Absolutely. Like Mac just mentioned, are they good enough to say they deserve to be in the 3rd spot, 3rd or 4th spot? No. So they need depth. That's still a gaping hole that they need to fill. They don't have enough depth in terms of quality of depth, and in terms of playing more competitions, whether it be the League Cup, Europa League, and things of that nature. They still need players to be able to consistently perform throughout those competitions at a high level. You're going to need players. So if I'm Man U, I'm still looking. And, if there's anything else that they can add, I'm sure they're looking to add as well. But if I'm Man U, I'm looking to add whoever and however I can. Obviously, without overspending, as I think the summer window is more important. But yeah, they should definitely look to add some depth, just so they're not wearing thin at the end of the season if they're deeper into those competitions.
Okay, talking about depth, I guess, moving on to Spurs, Aston Villa. Spurs, I guess the notable thing to start to say is Kulusevski, and excuse me, there is a negative result there. In terms of depth, Mac, it looks like Spurs are lacking a lot more going forward than they really have the facilities to, I guess, be successful going forward right now. They lost this game, and even though people said they had a great summer transfer window, the question now still is depth. Obviously, they have injuries and whatnot, but what did you think of this game, and where do you think Spurs should look to sort of improve their season?
I think I'm very, very concerned with this performance because this is now I think the seventh game in a row in the Premier League where they've actually conceded first. And it's tough to be able to consistently dig yourself out of a hole week in, week out. And I think that they're a team where, they need a lot of things to be able to go their way defensively first if they're going to have that platform to be offensive, to be able to create opportunities, because they do have quality up top. I know, of course, as you highlighted, Kulusevski, who's a huge miss for them. And for me, he's probably their most irreplaceable player in terms of a creative sense. Because I think in terms since 2022, he's, I think, fourth in assists in the top 5 European leagues, behind like De Bruyne, Messi, and some other player's name that escapes my head. So he's absolutely vital for them. But it's concerning because unless they do bring in reinforcements, I feel like they're going to have kind of a shaky rest of the season and maybe in a similar position as Chelsea were. So for them, like I said, I would be very, very concerned. I think the only saving grace that they really do have is that once Kulusevski does come back, I think they have that consistent front three that can still create opportunities. But unless they show up stuff at the back to be able to start off, I think they're going to be in a tough way for the rest of the season for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they play a back three, Gio, but and even though the first half wasn't amazing on either side for Spurs or Aston Villa, you could see already that they're getting beat over the top. Aston Villa their players were much more in tune and very much looking forward to score first. Spurs, yeah, you can say they have players, coming back from the World Cup and stuff, but you'd expect better. I would say from this Spurs team. What did you think of their performance?
Do you really want to hear what I say? Or you want to hear the bias out of what I say?
No, true. Both.
Okay. Both. Okay. From an analytical standpoint, obviously you'd expect them to play better. Obviously, you are arguably, prior to the season starting, you have, arguably title aspirations or trophy aspirations. This is not a trophy aspirational team, as you can see. Like Max said, conceding goals game after game, that's not okay. You expect more from playing, especially with the 3 in the back. How are you allowing players to, get balls over so easily? It just doesn't make sense to me. And the fact that, Kane has to bear so much weight on his shoulders just to, even get a chance is shocking. Is how have you not addressed that issue yet? And what Conte said after the game was comical to me. Saying that maybe 6th, 7th, 8th is the best for them. But as a manager, I don't know how he says that. But from a biased point of view, I thought Spurs played great. They got what they deserved. And honestly, great ball by McGinn. Great ball by Ollie Watkins. To as a striker to not act too quickly and act too rash and just shoot that upon first touch. It's almost instinct to shoot as a striker. So for him to hold up the ball and to play it right through to Emi Buendia was phenomenal. So I think Villa definitely deserved the win. They played more of that counterattacking. They waited for their opportunity. They waited for their opportunities. Fought hard in the midfield to win the ball in crucial areas to create those chances. So all credits to him. All credits to Good Evening. I can't even say his name, but that's what I'll refer him to. But we all know who we're talking about. So yeah, I think Villa deserved the win. Spurs obviously are in a tough spot in terms of their performances. And look, this is when the luck runs out. They can't keep drawing games late and conceding late, and conceding early and late for that matter, and still expect to get some sort of result out of it.
Yeah, just quickly going to touch on before we move on from this game. Yeah, Unai Emery gets Aston Villa have 2 away wins this season, and they both came after Unai Emery got appointed as the manager. So he mentioned in his post conference, the team is building confidence, and obviously that's the difference between what they have with him and what they had with Gerrard. Where if you saw these two teams face each other early in the season, you would. I think it's pretty safe to say you would assume that Tottenham would dominate that midfield, whereas in this game, Aston Villa was the team that was more on it. So, 2-0 Aston Villa over Spurs, and we'll quickly touch on what this means, but just want to move on now to my team, Liverpool, who narrowly beat Leicester. I predicted that it would be a smash job for Liverpool, but they barely got through to that one. Partly, actually not partly, very much thanks to 2 own goals by Walt Faes. Hey man, we really missed him because today, at the time of recording, Liverpool have lost to Brentford 3-1, and obviously there's a lot of things you can say on the Liverpool end, but Brentford, gotta give them props. When Spurs tied them 2-2 last game, I thought, you know what, that's a big drop off for Spurs. Hey, if that's a drop off for Spurs, then Liverpool are in a lot more trouble. So, Gio, currently Liverpool are in 6th with 28 points. Could challenge for top 4, but the likes of it, the performances and the results that have been going their way, not the best. What do you think for Liverpool in terms of their top 4 aspirations?
See, that's the thing I don't understand is that they went out and got a more offensive player. Yes, you should have got an offensive player, but it should have been in the midfield where they needed to address the issues. So I don't know how, Cody Gakpo coming into the squad would help. But yeah, no, they still lack a lot in that area. And I guess a lot of the season when we discuss Liverpool games is they constantly love to play a high line, and they often get beat with that high line. And again, it happened again this time. Shrewsbury Hall found the gaps. Once he got by, I think it was Jordan Henderson, there was a clear path through to the net. So I think defensively, they definitely let themselves down. I think they sold Leicester quite short, and kind of, thought that it was going to be, a walk in the park. Leicester isn't much of a goal-scoring team, let alone a highly defensive team. But, I guess they scored when they needed to because they just scored in the wrong net, that's all.
One of my favorite things from that game is I think the Liverpool fans were saying he's on a hat-trick. If he scored another one, he would have been on a hat-trick. But that result obviously very much favored Liverpool, but it came through as a day of reckoning, Mac, for Liverpool, and it exploited a lot of their weaknesses in this game against Brentford. The being first to every ball, Brentford being very much sticking to the system and weathering the wave after wave attack from Liverpool, and then finding their time to strike. Very much props to Brentford, but what's going wrong with Liverpool, and how do you see their season going after this?
It'll be very interesting. I think I saw the stat and I thought it was very interesting because Alisson has made more saves thus far this year for Liverpool than the entire season for their title-winning team in 1920. So you can see how busy he's been and how poorly Liverpool played just from how kind of active he has to be game in, game out for them. I think defensively, Van Dijk was taken off against Brentford. I think at halftime, overall, very, very poor across the pitch defensively, trying to be able to make sure that they can maintain a certain standard there. But for them, it really starts with the top. Their front 3, quote unquote, whoever's playing up there is supposed to start off that press. And has not been going well kind of from front to back. So it's difficult to pinpoint where the mistakes happening because I could look at any other front three players and put blame on them on a defensive aspect. But I also, at the same time, can't also do the same thing on the other side defensively. Who's played great? It doesn't stand out for me. So the kind of the missing sauce, the secret sauce for them is that cohesive 11-man unit pressing at the same time, knowing where they need to be. And I think unilaterally it has been failing. So I don't know if needs to be a change of players. Maybe Gakpo is a player that can suit to that. Maybe there's an adjustment in strategy. I don't know what Klopp, in terms of he's going to pinpoint out, this is what we need to fix to be able to get more kind of success on the pitch, to get back playing the way that we want to play, or kind of just we need a new plan. People have found us out. We need to readjust and have a different way to be able to break other teams down. I think we won't know that, unfortunately, in my opinion, probably till by the end of the season, because I think their goal is if they can finish in the top four, great. They're in a position fortunate enough to be where Tottenham are messing up and Chelsea are messing up, so there is a path for them still to finish in the top four theoretically. But at the same time, they need to start making adjustments, because even though there's still another half of the season left, these fixtures are coming quick, and there's not going to be as much practice time to implement those changes. So I think I would be a little bit concerned, but given kind of where they are, and they at the very least over the last two games did at least pick up a win and 3 points, which was key for them. I'm not kind of ringing I'm not pulling the fire alarm yet.
Okay, on that note, just quickly before we wrap up this part, Gio, Mac mentioned obviously Chelsea currently 9th place in the league, Liverpool are 6th, Spurs performing not having the greatest performances in this period of the season. It looks like that top 4 position is what it was last year, where everyone was just scrambling for it and no one could really cement themselves to sort of get themselves there and really cement themselves in that top 4 position. What do you think? What do you think will happen for Spurs, Liverpool, Chelsea, the likes of these teams, and how they can challenge Man U and Newcastle for those remaining European spots?
I think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a bloodbath. That's what I'm trying to see, really. It's because each game right now is just so important. Should be so important to each and every single one of them, and because of everything going on, still having to play Champions League and everything like that, teams are going to be fatigued. So every time they play, or when they play each other, those point swing games are going to be massive, and it's almost going to feel like a derby. So it's going to be interesting football to watch, and as a football fan, you can't ask for anything else. Do I think who do I think out of the 3, for example, can squeeze in? I think if it had to be one, it would be Liverpool. I don't think Chelsea really have it in them this year. Whether Reece James comes back healthy, whatever the case may be, I just don't think they have that cohesiveness, and I don't think they'll gain that cohesiveness anytime soon. It looks like a longer project than they kind of anticipated. As for Spurs, I think they're unwilling to spend. I think Daniel Levy's unwilling to spend. So in terms of getting the help in the midfield that they need, it's unlikely that'll come this winter. So I think just offshore experience, managerial experience, squad experience in terms of competing for the league, competing for tight games. I think Liverpool have that edge.
Okay. Obviously, I'm very happy to hear you guys say that. I personally am a little more skeptical, but hey, we're here to cover it, and we'll definitely be covering all the results of the upcoming games. But let's take another break here, guys, and then we'll be back previewing the upcoming games for the Premier League match week 19. So stay with us. Welcome back to House of Footy, guys. We are going to finish off today's podcast with a preview of some of the games taking place for match week 19 of the Premier League. First game we're going to talk about now is Arsenal-Newcastle, which at the time of recording, by the time that you're listening to this, it may be playing or have already recently played. So we're going to quickly cover our predictions. Mac, big challenge for Arsenal, I would say, in this game, facing third place Newcastle at home. In previous seasons, Arsenal being at home may not be the best case for Arsenal, but do you predict that the home crowd will be up for it this time around? with Arsenal being first and the performances that we've seen for them?
Absolutely. I think at least thus far this season, it's kind of been growing and growing and growing, that there has been more of an atmosphere inside Emirates Stadium. And I think that can be a huge factor for this game, as well as the Newcastle injuries. I think this will put them in position where Arsenal will probably comfortably go into this game and feels that they will dominate possession in a lot of ways, as well as dominate chances. It's really maybe clinical enough to take them, as well as they can be able to make sure on the break between Almiron and if St. Maximin is starting for the left wing, let's say for this game, that defensively on the break, they can do enough to be able to kind of contain those situations. Because in Arsenal system, the way that they play is if they're playing, generally it's been the left back has kind of tucked in as a second defensive midfielder, and they play three across the back with Ben White. Sometimes Ben White's tucked in. If either of those things are happening, it leaves a lot of space out wide in their respective fullback positions, which, yes, the thought process is there's enough time to get back and cover, but against quick, tricky players like Almiron and St. Maximin, that can be potentially be very difficult and leave either Saliba or Gabriel in one-on-one situations that they may not be as comfortable in. So I think those are the matchups I've been looking at for Arsenal on a defensive side, offensive side. For me personally, it'll kind of come down to Saka. Whenever Saka has a really, really good game for Arsenal, they generally do very, very well and most likely will win the game. And he's been on tip-top form. I think he's first, if I have to remember this correctly, in Europe's top 5 leagues, he's first in goals and assist contributions for someone under the age of 21 for this past year. So, and he's been consistent game out, game in, where he's creating something or scoring a goal for himself. So I think having a matchup against Dan Burn, who plays generally on the left-handed side for Newcastle, I think that's the matchup that could dictate the game for Arsenal or Newcastle.
Now that you mention it, I don't think I can remember a bad Saka game so far this season, so that would be interesting to note. Gio, we mentioned it, I think a couple of podcasts ago, Arsenal-Newcastle, big game. We expect Arsenal to dominate possession, but Newcastle shouldn't. At least I don't think that's a concern of theirs. I think they're comfortable playing without the ball. How do you see this game coming out, Gio?
Yeah, no. Look, I think it's easy for us to say it can go either way, but it can really go either way because there are games where Newcastle have had just about 40% possession and have taken the game 3-1. So they're very capable of scoring with the minimal opportunities that they do get. But I think it's a matter of, I do think Arsenal have the stronger midfield. But the run of form of Almiron, I think is important because it's gonna come down to Arsenal's defense and how they really sort of balance out how they want to play this Newcastle team. You have the likes of course, Kieran Trippier crossing balls in, so you have to be wary of that. You have to be wary of the off-ball movement of Almiron or every time he touches the ball per se. So how you neutralize him, but again, when you're too focused on Almiron, they have guys like Maximan that can that can dance and that can shoot, and then you have a guy like Joe Willock who's not bad, who hasn't been bad. He scores oddly timely goals, these random timely goals. So you can't discount that in any way because again, you're only up 7 points in the league. So any one of these guys can make a difference on this Newcastle team. Look, I think above all, I think it's more so going to come down to Guimaraes and how he can sort of not necessarily outplay the Arsenal midfield, but force the Arsenal midfield to kind of regain focus on him so they're not as focused on other things on the pitch. So he has to have a great game in order for that Arsenal, the more dominant Arsenal midfield, to be a little bit more neutralized.
Okay, so obviously a big game to watch. We'll be covering that in our next podcast. Next game we're going to cover quickly now is Crystal Palace versus Spurs. Now, we just talked about Spurs and how they lost 2-0 to Aston Villa. Crystal Palace, though, did have a 2-0 win against Bournemouth. I watched a little bit of the post-match words from Patrick Vieira, and he basically said, our goalkeeping coach noticed something interesting about Bournemouth. Basically, they can't defend set pieces. Crystal Palace scored 2 goals from set pieces in their game. Tottenham, who are, I would say, not in the greatest shape defensively, may have a problem here. Mac, how do you think this game will go? Because Crystal Palace at home, if they have Zaha, Elise, Eze on top form, it's going to be a long day for those Tottenham defenders.
Uh, so the way that you put it played out perfectly for them, for Crystal Palace, because the first one, they're like, okay, we're going to throw everyone in the box, get a kind of a scrappy goal. It worked out. Then kind of, the team that they faced is
Bournemouth,
sorry. In terms of immediately, okay, fine, we're going to move everyone back. And that left the top of the box open for Eze, which was a great strike. A great technique to be able to pull that off. But, and as you highlighted, that is not Tottenham's strength with Hugo Lloris and their 3 center backs. Whoever's really playing there at that moment, if it be Dyer, Davies, Romero, it's not great from them. So I would be very interested to see how this plays out. I think in terms of more so will be very, very interesting. I think Crystal Palace are one of the few teams where, even if they're playing at home, are comfortable without the ball because they have the athletic ability out wide to be able to create on the break, kind of as they did towards the beginning of the season against Liverpool. If you remember, in terms of if they can get those 1 or 2 chances on the break, they can sit back, be comfortable. I wouldn't be surprised if in this fixture Zaha starts at striker, if he does play with Eze and Alicia on either wing. I think that could be very interesting attacking front 3 and cause a lot of problems for Tottenham defense on the break. The interesting part will be is, can Tottenham score? Can Tottenham create opportunities? They only had an expected goals in their previous game of 0.7, which is porous. So you need a lot more out of them. I think that's where kind of the game will be decided, is if Tottenham are on the front foot, are able to put balls to the box, are able to kind of feed Harry Kane, Son, players like that, then they should be able to comfortably win. But if not, if they're not able to kind of create opportunities, Crystal Palace are more than comfortable to take they'll be like, we'll go in, we'll have 3 shots on target, we'll score 1, maybe 2, we'll win the game.
And that's very much vital, I think. Who gets that first goal? As you read out that stat, Matt, I think Spurs have been trailing in 7 of their last 8 games, first concede. And so if they do that away at Crystal Palace, it could be, like I said, a long day. But Gio, try to give us a non-biased prediction of what do you think will happen in this game.
Honestly and truthfully, I think a lot of what happened in the Villa game will happen in this game. I think, if Conor Gallagher was still on this Crystal Palace side, I would definitely take Crystal Palace in a heartbeat. I think that's what they're kind of missing this season. But no, I think Spurs are, look, after a tough loss like this, you want to start off on a strong foot and really just try and go out there and try to dominate the game, whether it be through possession or attacking, putting a lot of pressure on the other team. But I think that's where their mistakes are going to come from. And again, we talked about the likes of Eze and Zaha and Elise. Those players are so pacey and so skillful. They thrive on the counterattack. So I think that's where the mistakes are going to come from, and that's where Crystal Palace are really going to benefit. And I think Crystal Palace will, like Aston Villa, take this game.
Ooh, okay. So let's move on to the last game that we'll touch on now. Very, very interesting game for a host of reasons. Chelsea take on Man City at home. Chelsea not in the greatest run of form, Mac, and it really showed their weaknesses against that Nottingham Forest team, who are currently, I think, still in the relegation zone. They weren't able to, even though they had a lot more of the possession, they weren't able to set their foot on the game and really kill it, and allowed Nottingham Forest the chance to come back. So Man City, after a tie with Everton, they should be coming all out for blood. And so Chelsea, do you think they'll be on the wrong end of this result? What do you think, Mac?
Absolutely. I don't really see kind of a game plan for Chelsea to be able to score, to be honest. They're struggling to put balls into the back of the net. Offensively, they've been very, very weak. They've rotated a lot of different players like Havertz, Pulisic, Aubameyang, Broja. They played a lot of different players in different attacking positions, and it hasn't really come out for them recently. Where like I said, I think it's for their last 5 games in the Premier League, they've scored 3 goals in the last 5 Premier League games. So it's been very tough for them. And against a City team which is strong defensively, can keep the ball out of their net. I would be concerned if Chelsea can't get on the score sheet, where I'm pretty certain that Man City won't have a problem at least doing that. So that's more so we see where this game will come down to, is where Chelsea, they're going to have to play on the break. City are going to walk in with 65 plus possession percentage wise. It's really, when you get on the break, can you take your couple opportunities and kind of dominate you well that way, because there's no other pathway forward. The tough part for them is that their 2 best players thus far this season, I would argue, Reece James injured, Sterling. Yes, he did score in the last game, not in the greatest run of form right now. So it's been, for me, it's really doom and gloom for Chelsea. At this point, I think it's getting to the point where you can write off their European hopes for the season. But if they do manage a performance at the very least, that's a positive that Graham Potter can take out, as Chelsea are really looking to be able to shake up their team in this transfer window and are the most active right now in all the rumors with everything they've already even done. So I think if you're a Chelsea fan, that's more so what you're looking for than watching this game, really.
Gio, I think we are very much on this same page together, where we don't know which 11 is Graham Potter's best. What do you think will happen in this game?
I know which 11 is Graham Potter's best, and that's a very simple answer, and it's shocking that you guys don't understand this at this point. Is any side without Christian Pulisic is your best 11. So I don't know. I don't know why that's a shock, but yeah, any side without Christian Pulisic is definitely going to be the strongest side. I think he always seems to be the weak link in the game. In terms of going forward, like we discussed in the previous podcast, I just don't think he's a great fit for this team at all. So yeah, I think he should look elsewhere, or they should figure out what they want to do with him sooner rather than later, as they can still scrape up some value for him. But yeah, in terms of this game against Man City, as we discussed, any game that Man City has ended off poorly, the next week that team should be scared. Team should be scared. Pep's going to want to go for heads and jugulars and whatever the case may be, and take that team out very convincingly. And I think it will happen just because how well set up Man City is, and sort of the lack of offensive threat Chelsea have and have shown this season. Man City are going to be very comfortable controlling the tempo, controlling the just dictate the movement of the game, the pace of the game, change the pace of the game. I think they have it all, and they could do it, within a snap of a finger. So it should be a dominant performance from Man City. I know we said it should have been a smash job against Everton, but if you're looking for a very well played dominant performance from a football team, I think you should watch this game and watch Man City.
Interesting. Just wanted to read out the last 2 results in the league for Man City Chelsea. Both Man City 1-0 wins. Just because I can't, for my mind at least, think of a great performance other than the Champions League final, which is a one-off game for Chelsea against Man City. Even in the 3rd round of the EFL Cup last season, they did lose to Man City. So even history-wise, they aren't there against Man City. So will be interesting to see how they can try to approach this game. But I don't see, like you guys mentioned, a lot of hope for Chelsea in this game, unless they prove us wrong otherwise. But I guess on that note, I wanted to say thank you, and we'll conclude the podcast for today. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe to us on our social medias. That's our handle is @house_of_footy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or general banter, feel free to get in touch with us via email as well. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. The next time you'll hear from us will be Friday, when we review the Matchday 19 Premier League games. And on that note, thank you, Mac, for joining us.
Peace out.
Thank you, Gio.
Let's go, Conte.
And thank you guys for listening.